don't like Angelina Jolie. I think she's just not a girl's girl. I like girls. It has nothing to do with Jennifer. As a woman, I know when you see somebody walking across the room that's a bad girl. She seems like a demon.
Angelina Jolie may be one of Hollywood's most iconic stars, but she's also one of its most controversial. From scandalous love affairs to feuds that shook Tinseltown, Jolie has built a career shadowed by enemies as much as admirers. Many celebrities have openly voiced their disdain, and some stories are downright explosive. These are the stars who vehemently hate Angelina Jolie, and why. Jon Voight. Few Hollywood relationships have been as fraught, public, and ultimately redemptive as that between actress Angelina Jolie and her father, Academy Award-winning actor Jon Voight. Their bond has long fascinated fans, in part because it mirrors the complicated themes of love, betrayal, and forgiveness that so often play out in Jolie's own films. Jolie's strained relationship with Voight traces back to his alleged infidelity toward her mother, actress Marceline Bertrand. Bertrand and Voight's marriage dissolved when Jolie was a toddler, leaving deep emotional scars. As Jolie grew older, she distanced herself from her father both personally and professionally, dropping his surname and choosing to go by Angelina Jolie rather than Angelina Voight. In interviews, she did not shy away from discussing how her father's actions shaped her views on fidelity. In one candid statement, via Today, she declared, "To be intimate with a married man, when my own father cheated on my mother, is not something I could forgive. I could not look at myself in the morning if I did that." That remark has since raised eyebrows, considering Jolie herself later admitted that she developed feelings for Brad Pitt, then married to Jennifer Aniston, while filming Mr. and Mrs. Smith, 2005. The contradiction has been noted by gossip outlets and fans alike, illustrating the complex, sometimes messy nature of personal values versus lived experience. But for Jolie, the shadow of her father's infidelity was clearly formative, shaping her early insistence on moral boundaries. Even when their professional lives intersected, the tension was palpable. Voight appeared alongside Jolie in Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, 2001, playing her on-screen father, but their off-screen interactions were reportedly cool. Their estrangement deepened in 2002 when Voight made public comments about Jolie's mental health. In an interview with Access Hollywood, via Entertainment Weekly, Voight said, "I haven't come forward and addressed the serious mental problems she has spoken about so candidly to the press over the years, but I've tried behind the scenes in every way." For Jolie, who was then navigating both a high-profile career and personal struggles, the remark felt like a betrayal. Not only did it expose deeply private matters, but it also suggested that her father was willing to speak about her vulnerabilities in public rather than address them privately. The fallout was swift. Jolie cut off contact, and the two did not speak for nearly a decade. During those years, Jolie became one of the world's most famous women, a mother, an Oscar-winning actress, and a humanitarian, without her father by her side. Voight, meanwhile, continued his own acting career, but in interviews, he occasionally hinted at regret and sorrow over their fractured bond. Around 2011, after years of distance, Jolie and Voight reconciled. The catalyst for their reunion was reportedly Jolie's growing family with Brad Pitt. Her 6 children, who were close to their grandfather, played a role in bridging the gap. Voight began appearing at family events and offering public praise for his daughter, signaling a shift from past resentments to renewed affection. In a 2013 interview with the New York Daily News, Voight said, "My love and admiration for my daughter can't be explained in words." His tone had softened, suggesting a man who recognized past mistakes and now deeply valued the relationship he had nearly lost. Scott Rudin. Scott Rudin is one of Hollywood's most prolific and influential producers, a man whose fingerprints are all over some of the biggest films of the last 3 decades. Though many moviegoers may not recognize his name, they've almost certainly watched his work. The teen classic Clueless, 1995, the revenge comedy The First Wives Club, 1996, the outrageous puppet satire Team America, World Police, 2004, the Oscar-winning No Country for Old Men, 2007, and the critically acclaimed The Social Network, 2010. Known for his sharp instincts and his even sharper tongue, Rudin has a reputation as both a powerhouse and a Hollywood terror. That reputation was laid bare for the public in December 2014, when the infamous Sony email hack revealed his unfiltered thoughts about one of the industry's biggest stars, Angelina Jolie. The hack, which exposed thousands of private communications between Sony executives, was a devastating breach that embarrassed some of Hollywood's most powerful players. Among the most shocking revelations was Rudin's blunt criticism of Jolie. The emails showed that Jolie was trying to persuade director David Fincher to helm her long-gestating Cleopatra project. At the same time, Rudin was counting on Fincher to direct Steve Jobs, 2015, a biopic Rudin was producing. To Rudin, Jolie's efforts were a direct threat to his film's progress, and he didn't hold back his frustration. In an email exchange with then Sony Pictures president Amy Pascal, Rudin unleashed a verbal tirade. "I'm not destroying my career over a minimally talented, spoiled brat who thought nothing of shoving this off her plate for 18 months so she could go direct a movie," he wrote, referring to Jolie's decision to step back from Cleopatra to direct Unbroken, 2014. He then added, "I have no desire to be making a movie with her, or anybody, that she runs and that we don't." It was a rare, unvarnished glimpse into the behind-the-scenes power struggles of Hollywood, and it was brutal. What made the comments even more incendiary was their lack of subtlety. Rudin wasn't hinting, sugarcoating, or even attempting diplomacy. His remarks were pure, unfiltered contempt. For someone of Jolie's stature, a multiple Oscar-winning actress, acclaimed director, and global humanitarian, to be called minimally talented and a spoiled brat by one of the industry's top producers was shocking. These weren't the kinds of whispers usually kept behind closed doors. They were now splashed across headlines for the world to see. The fallout was immediate. The leak not only embarrassed Rudin, but also reignited Hollywood's fascination with celebrity rivalries and studio politics. Jolie, who had not commented publicly on the emails, was suddenly at the center of a storm she hadn't created. The revelation also painted a picture of the delicate balancing act directors and producers must play when courted by competing projects. David Fincher, known for his perfectionism and loyalty to collaborators, was now caught between two high-profile films and two powerful figures. For Rudin, the emails added to a growing narrative about his volatile temperament. Over the years, he has been both celebrated for his taste and condemned for his abusive behavior toward colleagues. The Jolie comments fit perfectly into that pattern. Brilliant, but brutal. Commanding, but combustible. Many industry insiders weren't surprised by his words, only that the public had finally seen them. The Sony hack also raised larger questions about privacy and accountability in Hollywood. While Rudin's language was scathing, some argued that private correspondence should remain private, especially in an industry where strong opinions and power plays are part of daily life. Others countered that the exposure of such candid remarks revealed the ugly underbelly of Hollywood's power dynamics, where even the most successful stars could be reduced to insults in the heat of competition. Jennifer Aniston. When Jennifer Aniston married Brad Pitt in 2000, they were hailed as Hollywood's golden couple. Their marriage symbolized glamour and stability in an industry notorious for fleeting relationships. By the time Pitt signed on to star opposite Angelina Jolie in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, 2005, Aniston's career was thriving post-Friends, and Pitt was one of the most bankable leading men in the world. On the surface, they seemed unshakable. But the film's steamy premise, a married pair of undercover assassins discovering each other's secrets, would soon mirror the real-life drama unfolding behind the scenes, the set of Mr. And Mrs. Smith quickly became infamous as the place where Brangelina was born. Jolie and Pitt would later admit that they grew close during filming. Though both insisted they didn't act on their feelings until after Pitt's marriage ended, their undeniable chemistry was hard for the public, and for Aniston, to ignore. Tabloids seized on every photo, every offhand comment, turning the movie's publicity tour into a feeding frenzy. For Aniston, who had married Pitt believing in a long future together, the whispers were devastating. What followed was one of the most iconic pop culture rivalries of the 2000s, Team Aniston versus Team Jolie. It wasn't just a Hollywood scandal, it was a full-fledged cultural moment. Marketers capitalized on the drama, churning out T-shirts declaring allegiance to one woman or the other. Late-night hosts cracked jokes, magazines analyzed body language and paparazzi shots, and even people who didn't normally follow celebrity gossip took sides. But the frenzy often overlooked the real people at the center of it, two actresses navigating a situation that had spun wildly out of their control. Aniston herself kept her composure publicly, but in 2008 she spoke candidly with Vogue about how Jolie's earlier remarks had cut deep. Jolie had openly reminisced about rushing to set, excited to spend time with Pitt, during an interview that painted their on-set connection as almost romantic destiny. For Aniston, who had not yet processed the timeline of her own crumbling marriage, those comments felt like salt in the wound. "Those details," she told Vogue, "were definitely from a time when I was unaware that it was happening. I felt those details were a little inappropriate to discuss." Her choice of words, measured but pointed, revealed the quiet hurt behind her public grace. Her admission also confirmed what many suspected. Brangelina's spark ignited before Pitt and Aniston officially split. The revelation reframed public perception of the breakup, making Aniston a sympathetic figure, while Jolie became a lightning rod for scrutiny. Jolie, for her part, would later say she never intended to hurt anyone, and even avoided Pitt at first because of his marriage. But by then, the narrative had taken on a life of its own, and the world had decided that Aniston was the wronged wife. Over time, the frenzy cooled. Aniston rebuilt her life and career, leaning on close friends and maintaining a sense of humor about her public image. Jolie and Pitt went on to marry, raise a large family, and later divorce, creating another chapter of tabloid drama. In retrospect, the triangle is remembered less for its heartbreak and more for the way it encapsulated early 2000s celebrity culture, an era when tabloids ruled, fandoms picked sides, and personal heartbreak became mass entertainment. Chelsea Handler. Chelsea Handler has never been shy about speaking her mind, and her outspoken persona has earned her a reputation as one of Hollywood's most fearless and sometimes ruthless comedians. But even for Handler, whose biting wit has skewered countless celebrities, her repeated jabs at Angelina Jolie over the years have stood out for their venom. The tension became especially apparent during an appearance on Watch What Happens Live, where Handler casually but pointedly labeled Jolie a demon via Us Weekly. At first, some assumed Handler's disdain stemmed from loyalty to Jennifer Aniston, one of her closest friends. After all, the Aniston-Pitt-Jolie triangle had dominated headlines for years, and Handler has long been part of Aniston's inner circle. However, Handler insisted her dislike for Jolie was personal, not born of Hollywood alliances. "It has nothing to do with Jennifer," she said bluntly. "As a woman, I know when you see somebody walking across the room, that's a bad girl. I just don't like Angelina Jolie. I don't think she's a girl's girl. I like girls. That statement, "I don't think she's a girl's girl," struck a chord with many observers. To Handler, a girl's girl is a woman who uplifts, supports, and forms genuine bonds with other women. Jolie, in Handler's view, didn't fit that mold. This wasn't a casual jab at Jolie's movie roles or fashion choices. It was an attack on her character and the way she relates to other women. Handler even went further in other interviews and comedy routines, calling Jolie a homewrecker and using language too explicit for some outlets to reprint. The Homewrecker label, of course, was a not-so-subtle reference to Jolie's relationship with Brad Pitt, which began while he was still married to Jennifer Aniston. Although Jolie and Pitt have both maintained that they didn't physically act on their feelings until after Pitt's separation, public perception has always been different. For many, Jolie became the ultimate other woman, and Handler's comments played into that narrative. Still, Handler maintained that her dislike for Jolie was about personality, not loyalty to Aniston, though critics argued that line was difficult to draw given the history. Handler's remarks didn't just make headlines, they reignited old wounds in the public imagination. The Jolie-Pitt-Aniston saga had largely cooled by the time of Handler's most infamous digs, but her choice to reopen that chapter kept the story alive in the tabloids. Her words also sparked debate about what it means to be a girl's girl, and whether women should call each other out publicly. Some applauded Handler's candor, viewing her comments as a refreshing rejection of Hollywood's often fake politeness. Others criticized her for perpetuating the idea that women must compete or tear each other down. Handler didn't seem bothered by the controversy. In her stand-up specials and interviews, she doubled down on her assessment of Jolie, occasionally softening her tone but never fully retracting her comments. For Handler, part of her comedic brand is saying what others might only whisper, and her unapologetic attitude toward Jolie became a recurring punchline. As for Jolie, she has never publicly responded to Handler's barbs, at least not directly. Her silence may be strategic, a refusal to fuel a feud that would only give Handler more publicity. Jolie's public image has been built around her humanitarian work, acting career, and role as a mother to 6 children, and engaging in a war of words with a comedian might have undermined that carefully crafted persona. Laura Dern. In the ever-spinning carousel of Hollywood relationships, few stories have the quiet sting and dramatic irony of what happened to actress Laura Dern when Billy Bob Thornton fell for Angelina Jolie. Though Dern has remained largely diplomatic about the situation over the years, the few words she has spoken on the subject are as cutting as they are telling. Sometimes, silence, or a single, well-placed quote, says everything. The timeline reads like a familiar Hollywood cautionary tale. By the late 1990s, Laura Dern was an acclaimed actress with a reputation for intelligence and depth in her roles. She had worked with some of the best directors in the business, from David Lynch to Steven Spielberg, and her grounded demeanor made her seem refreshingly normal amid the excess of Tinseltown. Billy Bob Thornton, meanwhile, was the scrappy, charismatic actor-director who had just skyrocketed to fame with Sling Blade, 1996. The two began dating, and their relationship seemed serious enough that Dern later described their home as shared and their life as intertwined. Then came the fateful twist. In 1999, Thornton was cast alongside Angelina Jolie in Pushing Tin, a dark comedy about air traffic controllers. Jolie, already carving out a reputation as Hollywood's wild child, was magnetic and unpredictable, an actress unafraid of tabloid scandal or unconventional choices. While Dern was away working on another film project, Thornton's relationship with Jolie blossomed into something more than friendship. The next thing Dern knew, the man she considered her partner was suddenly married to someone else. Dern's only major public statement about the ordeal came in an interview with Talk magazine, via ABC News, where she delivered a line that has since become legendary for its understated devastation. "I left our home to work on a movie, and while I was away, my boyfriend got married, and I've never heard from him again." In one sentence, Dern painted a picture of betrayal, abandonment, and emotional whiplash that many found shocking, even by Hollywood standards. The situation inevitably invited comparisons to another Jolie-related love triangle, the later saga involving Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston. Like Pitt, Dern had gone to work assuming her relationship was solid, only to return to find her partner smitten with Jolie. The hashtag familiar practically writes itself. While it's easy to place the blame squarely on Thornton, after all, he was the one who made the commitment, many observers noted that Jolie's involvement made her an easy target for criticism, as had been the case with Pitt and Aniston years later. The truth, of course, is more complicated. Thornton himself has admitted in later years that his decisions during that period were impulsive and chaotic, reflective of his own struggles rather than the failings of others. For Dern, the heartbreak did not define her. She went on to build an extraordinary career, earning critical acclaim and multiple awards, including an Academy Award for her role in Marriage Story, 2019. She also built a reputation for grace and resilience, rarely revisiting the painful episode in interviews. Her ability to keep her private life private, even in the face of such public betrayal, has only enhanced her image as one of Hollywood's classiest figures. Amal Clooney, Brad Pitt, and George Clooney have long been one of Hollywood's favorite duos. Their friendship, forged during the filming of Ocean's 11, 2001, and its sequels, became legendary. Together, they've shared countless interviews, pranks, and red carpet moments, often showcasing a brotherly bond that extends beyond the cameras. Pitt has described Clooney as one of his closest friends, and Clooney has spoken warmly about their mutual respect and fun-loving camaraderie. But when it comes to their personal lives, particularly the women in them, the situation is reportedly far less harmonious. The gossip mill has long whispered that Clooney's wife, Amal Clooney, née Alamuddin, harbors strong feelings about Angelina Jolie, and not positive ones. Amal, a world-renowned human rights attorney, author, and activist, has built her career on defending complex cases with global implications. Among her most high-profile clients is Julian Assange, the controversial founder of WikiLeaks. Amal represented Assange in his fight against extradition, cementing her reputation as a fearless defender of international law and freedom of information. The connection between WikiLeaks and Angelina Jolie may not seem obvious at first, but it ties back to the infamous 2014 Sony email hack. WikiLeaks was one of the platforms that later published the hacked emails, which included producer Scott Rudin's scathing comments about Jolie. In those private exchanges, Rudin referred to her as a minimally talented spoiled brat, while fuming about her attempts to lure David Fincher for her long-gestating Cleopatra project instead of Rudin's Steve Jobs biopic. For Jolie, the leak was a deeply humiliating moment, and Amal's association with Assange, WikiLeaks' founder, reportedly didn't sit well with her. According to Celeb Dirty Laundry and other gossip outlets, Jolie allegedly chose to skip George and Amal Clooney's lavish 2014 wedding in Venice, Italy, citing disagreements with Amal's political stances and her work connected to Assange. While Jolie is herself a respected activist and UNHCR special envoy who has campaigned for refugees, human rights, and women's issues, insiders claimed that she felt uncomfortable celebrating a union so closely tied, through Amal's legal work, to an organization that had published deeply personal attacks on her. It was a subtle snub that did not go unnoticed by the Hollywood rumor circuit. The reported tension added a layer of awkwardness to Pitt and Clooney's otherwise carefree friendship. Though there has never been any public confrontation between Jolie and Amal, the alleged frostiness underscores how personal and political worlds collide in Hollywood's tightly knit social circles. Clooney and Pitt have continued to collaborate and support each other, appearing together at events, and even working on new film projects in recent years. But insiders have suggested that double dates or cozy couples vacations were unlikely during Pitt's marriage to Jolie. It's worth noting that neither Amal Clooney nor Angelina Jolie has publicly commented on these rumors, and much of the narrative remains speculative. Amal's professional life is deeply intertwined with political and legal controversies. Defending Assange is just one example among many, including representing Yazidi women against ISIS and advising governments on international law. Jolie, meanwhile, has her own impressive activism credentials, from her extensive work with the United Nations to her efforts to spotlight war crimes and displaced persons. On paper, the two women share more in common than not. Both are intelligent, high-profile advocates for human rights. Yet in the world of celebrity gossip, perceived slights and tangled connections often overshadow common ground. Billy Bob Thornton. Among Hollywood's many infamous relationships, few have been as unapologetically eccentric or as endlessly discussed as the whirlwind romance between Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob Thornton. Their courtship and marriage in the early 2000s became a cultural touchstone for celebrity excess and unorthodox love, with public displays of affection so unconventional that even in a town famous for theatrics, they managed to shock. Jolie, then in her mid-20s, was already building a reputation as a bold, fearless actress with a rebellious streak. Her Oscar-winning performance in Girl, Interrupted, 1999, had established her as one of Hollywood's brightest stars, but her personal life often drew as much attention as her career. Thornton, 2 decades her senior, was a respected character actor and filmmaker, riding high from the success of Sling Blade, 1996, and poised for more acclaim with Monsters Ball, 2001. When their paths crossed on the set of 1999's Pushing Tin, their chemistry was instant and explosive. The pair married in Las Vegas in May 2000 after only a short period of dating, and their behavior quickly became tabloid legend. Perhaps the most talked-about symbol of their passion was the lockets of blood they wore around their necks. The story, which Jolie has since downplayed, was simple but provocative. Each cut a small amount of blood, placed it in a vial, and wore it as a pendant. To fans and critics alike, it was both shocking and strangely poetic, an edgy declaration of devotion that fit perfectly with their public personas. Jolie also made her commitment permanent, or so it seemed, by tattooing Billy Bob on her arm, a gesture that would later become an awkward reminder of a love that didn't last. Their over-the-top affection wasn't limited to jewelry and tattoos. At red carpet events and interviews, the couple was notorious for public displays of affection that left onlookers blushing. Stories of the two sneaking off to be intimate during award shows became part of their mythology. Jolie herself admitted to being completely consumed by their relationship, calling it intense, passionate, and, at times, overwhelming. Yet, beneath the theatrics, cracks began to show. By 2002, Thornton was reportedly uncomfortable with Jolie's growing desire to adopt a child. She would go on to adopt her first son, Maddox, later that year. Lifestyle differences and the pressures of fame began to strain their marriage. By 2003, the relationship had unraveled, and the couple finalized their divorce. Years later, Thornton reflected on the relationship with a mixture of candor and discomfort. Speaking to The Hollywood Reporter, he said, "I mean, it was a crazy time. I've never been fond of it." Importantly, he clarified that his unease was about that period of his life, not Jolie as a person. The years between 1995 and 2003 had been a roller coaster for Thornton, marked by intense career changes and personal upheaval, and their highly publicized marriage was part of that whirlwind. Time, however, seems to have softened any lingering bitterness. Jolie wrote the foreword to Thornton's 2012 autobiography, The Billy Bob Tapes, A Cave Full of Ghosts, signaling that the two have made peace with their shared past. In interviews, both have spoken respectfully of each other, with Thornton describing Jolie as a great friend and an amazing person. Their story has shifted from tabloid spectacle to nostalgic curiosity, an emblem of a bygone era when celebrities shocked the world simply by loving loudly and unconventionally. What do you think about the stars who can't stand Angelina Jolie? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this, and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.